watching the IUP TV News Bulletin, bringing you stories relevant to IUP and the Indiana community on Channel 6 and 20.
Good evening and thank you for joining us on this Thursday, November 3rd. I'm James Geddes.
And I'm Stoker Weisselrick, coming to you this evening in association with WIUP News.
It is just a week away. The country is gearing up for Election Day. This week will be important for the citizens to decide who they want to vote for. As mail-in voting is becoming more popular, many people have sent in their votes already. For others who choose to vote directly, they will do it on November 8th. In our area, the key races are between John Fetterman and Dr. Mehmet Oz for the Pennsylvania U.S. Senate seat. Then we have Josh Shapiro and Doug Mastriano for the governor of Pennsylvania. And more locally, our 62nd district in the PA House of Representatives, we have IUP's Brian Doyle taking on incumbent James Struzzi II. Later on in the show, we'll take a look at Brian Doyle's journey and as well as a deeper look into the Pennsylvania Senate race.
Brian Doyle and his opponent Jim Struzzi are facing off for the state representative position of Pennsylvania's 62nd district. In an interview with Indiana Gazette earlier this week, Doyle promised to fight for the rights and well-being of all Indiana County residents and Pennsylvanians if he is elected as state representative. This means the right to a living wage and respectable working conditions. He also emphasizes raising the minimum wage to $15 and protecting unions. His opponent, Jim Struzzi, on the other hand, focused on issues related to economy, inflation, increasing prices of goods and services that might affect stress, mental health, and addiction.
More than 85% of Pennsylvania state police stations failed to collect demographic data for traffic stops in 2021. Previously, the state police designed a form for officers to fill out after making a traffic stop, including information on circumstances for the stop, demographics of the driver, outcome of the stop, and even trooper information. Even though the entire state agreed to do so, the state police failed to complete the forms, which made it impossible for researchers to analyze the possible discrimination. Overall, state police troopers failed to report on 12% of the stops that they made. Researchers from the Cincinnati Center for Police Research and Policy said that without that information, they could not make any conclusion on racial disparities.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump is set to host a campaign rally this Saturday in support of Republicans Doug Mastriano and Dr. Mehmet Oz. This event coming days before the November election. Both candidates are facing uncertainty after skeptics are receiving news of Mastriano posing in a Confederate uniform next to U.S. military personnel, and concern over Dr. Oz, who is originally from out of state. The rally will take place at the Arnold Palmer Regional Airport, and I will be there to cover it for next week's show.
A man has been charged with attempting to kidnap senior U.S. politician Nancy Pelosi and also for assaulting her husband. The man broke into the Pelosi's home on Friday and assaulted 82-year-old Paul Pelosi with a hammer. Ms. Pelosi was not there at the time, but police say that this was not a random act. The suspect had a roll of tape, rope, a hammer, and several zip ties while in his possession while he got arrested. And he also told police that he planned to, quote, break her kneecaps if she lied to him. Nancy Pelosi was in Washington, D.C. at the time, but flew back to see her husband in the hospital where he had a surgery for a fractured skull. Mr. Pelosi is expected to fully recover.
Well, it's official. The world's richest man, Elon Musk, officially owns Twitter. This after nail-biting legal battles and disputes between him and the former company's CEOs, some of them, which he promptly let go after the purchase, became official. Musk says that he will capitalize on revamping the verification process for Twitter accounts. Officials are questioning if this change in the company's ownership could bring former President Donald Trump back to Twitter. Trump reacted on his own platform, Truth Social, saying, quote, I am very happy that Twitter is now in safe hands. Brazil has elected its next president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. President da Silva won by a slim margin of under 1%, coming out at 50.9%, holding the majority. The efforts of supporters were enough to beat the right-wing candidate, Jair Bolsonaro. In fact, President da Silva has led the country before. The comeback has the nation and world stunned. This possibly because da Silva was jailed back during the 2018 Brazilian election. World leaders such as U.S. President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulated da Silva for his appointment.
Even though it has been 157 years since being banned, slavery is on the ballot for the 2022 midterm elections in 5 states. 157 years ago, chattel slavery, which means that one person is the legal property of another, was banned. But most in the United States, slavery is still a punishment for a crime. On November 8th, Alabama, Louisiana, Oregon, Tennessee, and Vermont will decide to remove these exemptions for slavery from their state constitutions. Right now, up to 800,000 prisoners work for pennies, or sometimes no pay at all. It is a loophole that many feel needs to be closed. Many also feel that ending this type of slavery will strip away an incentive for many states to incarcerate their citizens.
Coming up, a young man on a mission for change in Pennsylvania's 62nd district.
Also, more on politics with our Frey Heidi.
The Penn Student newspaper is where students at IUP and members of the surrounding communities can catch up on the latest news about the weather, sports, culture, politics, and everyday events in Indiana. You can find such news articles on their website, thepenn.org. There you can also view their multimedia page full of videos and skits revolving around current trends on campus. Wanting to advertise your business? The Penn has you covered for that as well, with spots in their newspaper and videos. You can access all that and more at thepenn.org.
Whether we like it or not, politics are a way of modern life and civilization. More about that in this story I covered last semester. This is when the candidate Brian Doyle first announced that he was running for state representative of Pennsylvania's 62nd district.
It's a big world out there. And in a big world, your voice may seem small. One IUP student is on a mission to crush that stereotype.
With your help, we can bring change to make a better tomorrow.
IUP student Brian Doyle is running for state representative of Pennsylvania's 62nd district.
I've been interested in politics and working to help people with things like clothing drives and cleanup projects for honestly my whole life probably.
Doyle hopes to bring, quote, new young energy to Harrisburg.
Corporate greed is a big factor in what causes political gridlock and what causes our government not to help people.
Brian is motivated to run for this position after seeing his fair share of problems. This includes his family being left with no insurance due to job loss, and his school budget was slashed because of low enrollment rates,
Leading to many of my professors getting laid off. With your help, I hope to make sure things like this never happen again in Indiana County.
He had support from professors at IUP.
I was just a student here at IUP one day and I had a professor overhear me talking about politics. Is like, hey, why don't you get involved? You're clearly passionate about it. And now I'm running for state representative trying to help even more people.
It's obvious that Brian has been involved and will continue to be. Brian's goals also include the legalization of recreational marijuana and his message to why.
If we pass it, the Pennsylvania state could start bringing in $600 million in revenue from taxes by being able to regulate the market on recreational marijuana. So when we look at the other side, they like to tout that they're the fiscally responsible party, but when they're actively making decisions that's stopping the government from being able to bring in extra money, they're being fiscally irresponsible.
Looking at the big picture seems to be one of Doyle's many strengths, but he can't do it alone. These changes demand involvement.
If you can step up and take action, it can make a big difference, bigger than you think, because it starts with you and it spreads out from there.
You may wonder about how you can get involved. The team has an Instagram page titled Brian Doyle Campaign, where you can get all the latest updates on where they will be next.
Together, we can build a better Pennsylvania for Indiana County. I'm Brian Doyle, and I approve this message.
In Indiana, Pennsylvania, Stoker Wyzorek, IUP News.
As hard as politics are to talk about, some say that it's necessary in order to get the change that people want.
That's why we have our Frey Heidi here with some insight in today's political world. Hello, Frey.
Hey, Stoker. Election day is Tuesday, and candidates are finishing up their campaigns. Let's take a look at where they stand. The race for governor continues to be in Attorney General Josh Shapiro's hands, with latest polls showing him up by double digits over State Senator Doug Mastriano. 538 predicts Shapiro having a 95% chance to win the election. Shapiro, in a visit to Indiana in September, declared education and public safety to be his top priority for the state. He also took some time to denounce his opponent on his ties to far-right extremists.
I came here today to ask you that. At the same time, my opponent is the only candidate in the entire nation actively recruiting white supremacists to be part of his coalition.
Mastriano, in contrast to Shapiro, advocates for a restoration of civil liberties and election integrity, following in the footsteps of many Republican candidates and officials. To combat allegations of allying with extremists, Mastriano released a statement that he, quote, denounces anti-Semitism in all form. It's not all good news for Democrat candidates, however. John Fetterman's race against Dr. Mehmet Oz is a lot closer, with polls showing mixed results between both candidates. As of now, 538 predicts Fetterman has only a 56% chance to win the race, down from 83% in September. Both candidates appeal to voters' concerns over inflation and ineffective government. While polling is not available for the state representative race, voters in Indiana have the choice between Representative Struzzi, the incumbent, and Brian Doyle, an IUP senior set to graduate in December. If elected, Doyle would be a newcomer to Harrisburg. He has experience in organizing grassroots efforts from clothing drives to food bank collections in Indiana. He pledges to stand up for abortion rights, raise the minimum wage, and make quality education and healthcare more accessible. On the other hand, the incumbent has experience working in Harrisburg and was instrumental in diverting resources to mental health care in Pennsylvania to combat the opioid epidemic. Mr. Struzzi states on his website that his next focus is improving the infrastructure and economy of Indiana County should he be reelected. One key race to watch outside of PA is the Senate race in Georgia between Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. This race, alongside the PA and Nevada Senate races, will decide which major political party will take control of the U.S. Senate. This dead heat is not mirrored for the House of Representatives, however, which data shows is most likely going to fall into Republican control after the midterms. The deadline to register for Pennsylvania has passed, but you can still visit pavoterservices.pa.gov for information regarding voter registration status and polling locations. If you vote outside of Pennsylvania, you can still visit vote.gov and select your state for deadlines and other useful voting information. The election can dominate news cycles as the race gets closer to finishing. So let's take a look at some important stories happening on the Hill. U.S. Capitol Police Chief calls for more security for members of Congress due to the current political climate. This comes after Paul Pelosi, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, was attacked in their California home. According to ABC, threats against lawmakers have doubled since 2017, from 4,000 to 10,000 over a 4-year period. The Capitol Police already underwent a department overhaul following the January 6, 2021 attack. Officials say they continue to monitor for potential threats and hope to see more prosecutions as precautions are updated. Following recent landmark rulings, the Supreme Court has decided to examine another historical precedent. The court has accepted 2 cases for deliberation involving whether race should play a factor in college admissions. Harvard and the University of Carolina Chapel Hill were universities named in these cases. Representatives from these universities argue that race is just a small part in their, quote, holistic review of applicants and is crucial to maintaining minority student enrollment. Opponents say that it disadvantages white and Asian American applicants. The court is expected to render its decision by next year. That's all for politics this week. Tune in next week where we'll look at the early election results and determine what that means for the next 2 years. Let's bring it back to Stoker and James.
And thank you, Frey, for that.
Another year, another important decision for Pennsylvanians. On Tuesday, November 8th, the polls opened to midterm voters looking to make their voices heard. Many important races for Pennsylvania are being decided in this election on both the federal and state level. Specifically for Indiana County, there is an election for the governor's mansion, an open Senate position, and for the representative for the state's 62nd district in the state house. According to the latest polling data, it's likely Attorney General Josh Shapiro will win the governor's mansion over his Republican counterpart, State Senator Doug Mastriano. In his visit to Indiana in September, Shapiro was committed to enhancing education and rural economies.
To me, opportunity begins in our public school classrooms. And when I am your governor, we will invest in our schools, invest in our school children. We will finally do away with standardized testing in Pennsylvania. Not a measurement of how well a kid learns or how well a teacher teaches. We'll fully fund our classrooms. We'll pay our teachers more. We will make sure we fund a mental health counselor for every single school building in Pennsylvania because our kids deserve to be made healthy.
Additionally, he took some time to denounce Mastriano for his connections to far-right extremists, which Mastriano denies. Mastriano visited Indiana County back in August, where he discussed inflation, abortion, and trans athletes. On his campaign website, Mastriano advocates for school choice, lowering taxes, and preserving election integrity, among other issues. Despite Shapiro's large lead in his race, Democrats face steep competition in other elections. Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman faces off against Dr. Mehmet Oz for the open U.S. Senator position. The race, according to current data, is considered to be a toss-up. Analysts believe that the primary factor leading to such a close race is Fetterman's recent stroke, which has called into question his fitness to serve as senator. He has released a medical report detailing his recovery and assures the public that apart from minor speech issues, he is feeling great and ready to serve Pennsylvania. Fetterman supports expanding healthcare access and reducing its costs on top of his many Senate reforms he plans to make, if elected. His counterpart, Dr. Oz, wished Fetterman well in his recovery and was more concerned with his policies over his ability to serve.
I'm praying for his rapid recovery. I don't have any details about his current medical situation, but I'm not that worried about him being able to serve our country. I'm more concerned about what he would do, what decisions he would make if he was serving our nation.
Dr. Oz's concerns with healthcare include high prescription drug costs and nutrition, but has a questionable record with giving suspicious medical advice during his career. For the state representative race, no current data indicates which candidate will see victory. The candidates include the incumbent representative Jim Struzzi and IUP's own Brian Doyle. Struzzi believes his experience will carry him back to victory. His website details his accomplishments in office, including allocating resources for mental health care. However, Doyle believes it's time for a change.
I would say we've been given a lot of political jobs to people with a lot of supposed experience for a while, and they haven't exactly been helping us back here. My opponent, this will be his third term, and I know a lot of people are very disgruntled and upset. He's sold out unions, he's fought against the rights of our election boards, and we just don't see him helping us back here in Indiana County.
Regardless of your political leanings, it is important to make your voice heard and vote for the candidate who will best advocate for your issues in their office. For information regarding voter registration status or to find your polling place, visit pavoterservices.pa.gov. In Indiana, I'm Frey Heidi for IUP TV News.
Still ahead on IUP News.
How people see Indiana moving from the big city.
Let's talk about mental health. Not many people realize that your mental health is just as important as your physical. As college students, many different factors can contribute to poor mental health, such as the pressure to succeed, financial instability, social media, and poor health habits. So how do you maintain good mental health? Exercising multiple times a week, eating better on a daily basis, drinking less, and setting achievable goals for yourself are great ways to stay on top.
So in terms of moving, just into college, I've always found it, not as hard for me, but I know it can be harder for some people. And I was wondering, James, how was your experience moving into college?
My experience coming into college was pretty simple. I don't live that far away, less than an hour away, so it was a fairly easy move. And this area is much like my area back home, so it was a smooth transition for me.
That sounds good. And also for some people like our Eric Beswick, the experience is quite unique compared to most others.
Indiana, a small town in Pennsylvania, but a busy one thanks to IUP's campus. Because of its quaint surrounding areas, it can be a big change for students coming from big cities.
Honestly, one of the biggest differences from living in the city to coming here is probably the amount of people and how loud it is. Sometimes it's hard to find a quiet place when you're in the city, but here there's always a place to be able to study or sleep, no matter the time of the day or hour.
Luckily, there can be benefits and positive aspects of moving to a new area. And of course, with that, I wanted to learn what the city may have that IUP doesn't.
Anything about the food in the city, no matter what I was in the mood for, I could walk to it and it would always be open really late. But here in Indiana, a lot of things are closed because they close really early in town or they're really far away.
Not everything in Indiana is better, but both cities do have positive aspects of living there. Now, I also wondered what characteristics Indiana has that could improve the city.
I wish I could bring nature back to the city. Growing up in the city, it was never easily accessible to go out on a hike or just to walk outside in the park. But at IUP, any sort of drive or walk is all in nature.
Of course, Indiana is an enjoyable place to live with its own unique characteristics and attractions. No matter what, though, for many students, home will have a very special place in their heart. This has been Eric Beswick for IUP TV News.
After the break, we will look at unique traditions for the Thanksgiving holiday.
and catching up with IUP sports teams and their plans for this season here on IUP News.
Welcome to Folger Hall on the IUP campus. Once used as a dining hall, Folgers has been converted into a student center complete with a pool table, video games, board games, and study space for students to utilize throughout their Students can use this space to catch up on some great programming, study, or grab a bite to eat at Folgers late night, serving food until 1 a.m. Come check it out.
People have their own traditions when preparing for Thanksgiving, and most of them would be what you'd expect. But there are others that you have not heard of before, like turkey bowling. Alex Huber has a story.
With the Halloween season finally coming to an end, Americans are moving on to the next holiday season, which of course is Thanksgiving, and all of its wonderful traditions. Whether that's preparing the meal with your family, watching a football game, or even watching the Thanksgiving Day parade every year. But there are some traditions that happen around the Thanksgiving season which might seem off the wall or strange to some people, and I'm here to talk about those traditions. One interesting tradition that happens every year is the National Dog Show, which is held every year on Thanksgiving Day, which brings the best breeds from around the country to compete against one another to win the blue ribbon and decide who is the best man's best friend.
My family and I watch the dog show every year. It's really fun. We love seeing the animals, and even though we're not dog people, it really gets us excited for the holidays.
Another off-the-wall Thanksgiving tradition is turkey bowling, where contestants use traditional bowling rules only with frozen Thanksgiving turkeys.
My family and I, we always turkey bowl. It's something that we really enjoy, and that makes me look forward to the holiday, to the fall turkey season. And I'm not very good at it because it's kind of an impossible game, but it's still a really fun tradition.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if your traditions are odd or strange. All that matters is what makes the holiday special for you. For IUP TV, I'm Alex Huber, and thanks for watching.
Hello everyone, I'm Donovan Carrington, and with this week's IUP Sports News. And here are your daily sports teams. We have a lot to cover today, so let's dive in. First up, we have men's and women's swimming with a record of 2-0. They will be going up against Washington and Jefferson at 10:30, with the diving team going up against Chatham also at 10:30 this Saturday. Next, we have men and women's cross country, and they will be participating in the PSAC Championship this Saturday at Mansfield, PA at 11:30 a.m. With the start of the basketball season, our women's basketball team will be having a scrimmage this Saturday against Duke at 1 p.m. Field hockey is up next, and with a record of 8-6, they will be at Shippensburg this Saturday at 1 p.m. Next up is the football team, and if you guys haven't seen or heard, the IUP football team just received their first loss of the season against Gannon with a score of 36-43. They will have to just finish the season off strong against Clarion for their last regular season game before the PSAC Championship next week. In addition, it is also senior night for the team, so shout out to Derek Lockhart, Dwayne Brown, Don O'Brien, Cam Suman, Grant Smith, Terry Mumford, Will Mayer, and Rania Mitchell. Finally, the IUP volleyball team, with a record of 19-6, their season coming up to an end as they are playing their last two games this week before the PSAC Championship Conference games. On Friday, they will be going up against Gannon at 6 p.m. for their senior night. So shout out to Nicole Peterson, Leah Henderson, and Caroline Welsh. On Saturday, it will be the last game before the PSAC Championship, and they will be going up against Mercyhurst at 6 p.m. That will be it for sports news. Again, my name is Donovan Carrington, and I will be seeing you guys next time.
Changing the mood to sports, our Matt Palumbo is here to tell us what's in store for the Crimson Hawks this season.
Ever since the program was established in 1927, the IUP men's basketball team has been extremely successful and a big part of the university. However, even though the team has seen steady success for several decades, in 2006 they took the jump to a Division II powerhouse when they appointed head coach Joe Lombardi, who is still at the helm to this day. Lombardi shaped the Crimson Hawks program from a team that had only made the NCAA tournament 6 times in its history to a team that has made it 9 times in the past 16 seasons. This past season, IUP had one of its most successful teams to date, finishing 33-3 overall. They were able to capture the PSAC championship with a 63-52 victory over Millersville. Then they moved on to the NCAA tournament and ultimately fell in the Final Four to Augusta University. This fantastic season had students and the Indiana community showing up to the Kowalczyk Center in droves, especially since it was the first season fans were allowed back into the arena after the COVID-19 pandemic. This season, fans will return to the KCAC with the same passion and optimism as last year, as the team looks like they are poised to make another run at a national title. I had the privilege of interviewing IUP student Elijah Ward, who worked as a freelance photographer for the team for the past 2 seasons. During his time as the team photographer, Elijah was able to be present at practices and home games, which gave him an insight on the team that not many fans can have. I asked Elijah what his expectations are for this upcoming season, especially after such a successful winning season last year.
We definitely had a big team last year, a great team. And I know a lot of players are back this year also, except for I know Marnie went to Buffalo, pretty sure. I know he's doing big things up there. But honestly, I think the team is actually going to be even stronger than last year. You have Shondell, he was injured last year, ACL, pretty sure. But he's back this year healthy, so I think that's going to be a big factor on the team. I know they have, I'm pretty sure he's a freshman. I know he's getting good minutes in. I know he's going to be a big threat this year. But overall, I think with Dave, Ethan, Kyle stepping up, I know he had playing time last year. And then just everybody on that, Enrique and all them, I know they have big chances coming up. So they're definitely going to be seeing a lot more playing time this year. And I think IUP has another chance to go back to the Final Four and win it all.
As Elijah stated, if the Crimson Hawks can build off their stellar performances from last year, there is no reason they can't make a trip to the NCAA tournament again, maybe even reaching the Final Four. In the NCAA Division II preseason pool, the Hawks are ranked as the number 3 team in the nation. This is because the team was able to hold on to some important pieces from last season's team, including standout performers Dave Morris, Ethan Porterfield, and Shondell Jones, who is returning after a serious knee injury he suffered last season. With these players and an impressive recruiting class of freshmen and transfer students, IUP are favorites to win their 4th consecutive PSAC championship and challenge for a national title. For their preseason this year, IUP traveled to play 2 storied Division I programs in Miami and Syracuse. Although they fell in both games, IUP gave both teams a fight. Syracuse's head coach Jim Boeheim said in a press conference, quote, "I enjoyed playing IUP. They gave us a tough battle. They're a well-coached team that plays great defense. This is a testament to the great program that head coach Joe Lombardi has built and continues to build to this day." Anticipation continues to build for this season as the Crimson Hawks will officially begin their schedule on Saturday, November 12th against Concord at Clarion University. This has been Matt Palumbo with IUP News.
On Thursday at 7:30 p.m. in Waller Hall, there will be a Talents and Talent event. This is a talent show open to all students to show off their talents. Admission for the event are canned goods, which will be donated.
On Friday, there will be bingo at the Hub Ohio Room starting at 9:30 p.m. Bingo is held weekly, and there will be $300 worth of prizes this week. Our question of the week: are you planning to vote on the November 8th election? Comment your answer on our Instagram at IUP_news. That will do it for IUP News this week. On the next show, we'll have stories about topics like the election results and World Freedom Day. I'm Stoker Wyzorith.
And I'm Donovan Carrington. On behalf of the IUP News team, we want to thank you for choosing us as your local news source.
And don't forget to listen to our news show on 90.1 WIUP FM every Tuesday at 4 p.m. and follow our Instagram page at IUP_news. With that being said, I'm James Geddes. Please take care and good night.